The old warehouse looked harmless from the outside, almost like a forgotten storage place that people walked past without noticing. But inside, the air felt heavy, as if it carried secrets that were never meant to be told. Elias walked through its wide entrance with steady steps, pretending to be just another visitor. He carried a simple bag and wore clothes that didn't draw attention. Nothing about him looked unusual, and that was exactly what he wanted. The warehouse had been prepared for a private presentation event. At least, that was what the invitation had called it. But Elias knew it was something else. A group of people in the area had gained attention for hosting hidden gatherings where lost or missing individuals were brought in and matched with supposed guardians or sponsors. They claimed it was charity work, helping people who had no homes or families. But Elias had heard rumors that not everything was as it appeared. He had volunteered to attend on behalf of an NGO that worked with displaced individuals. His goal was simple: observe, take notes, and report back. He was not here to cause trouble. He was not here to interfere. At least, that's what he kept telling himself. He blended into the crowd and moved slowly, pretending to study the artwork displayed along the walls. Music played softly in the background, the kind made to give a sense of peace. People chatted politely, sipping drinks and admiring decorations. It almost felt like a normal event, but the uneasiness in Elias's stomach kept reminding him that nothing about this evening was truly normal. A man in a suit walked onto a small stage placed at the front of the room and tapped the microphone. The light above him brightened, and the crowd turned quiet. "Ladies and gentlemen," the man said with a warm smile, "thank you for coming. Tonight, we will introduce you to individuals who have been through difficult situations. Our goal is to help them find proper guidance and support." Elias watched carefully. His breathing stayed even, but his senses sharpened. He had read reports that these events were not illegal, but something always felt off. People did not simply appear here by chance. They were brought here, often from places where records were unclear, where families had become separated, or where communication had broken down. The first few individuals walked onto the stage one by one. Each time, the host introduced their name and briefly explained their background. The crowd clapped politely. Some people took notes. Others whispered to their companions. Elias stood still, hands resting lightly on his bag strap. He didn't want to seem too interested, but he also needed to stay alert. His job was to quietly understand how these gatherings worked. Then the lights shifted again. The host gave a small signal. A new person stepped onto the stage. Elias blinked and froze. It was a young girl, maybe 16 or 17. Her shoulders were slightly bent, as if she had grown used to being unnoticed. She wore simple clothes and kept her gaze fixed downward. At first, Elias thought she looked like anyone else who had walked up before her, quiet, uncertain, waiting for instructions. But then he saw her wrist. A small tattoo, simple but clear. A mountain shape, with 3 thin lines beneath it. A symbol he would never forget. His heart skipped. It was the same symbol used by a mountain rescue group he had once worked with during a remote volunteer mission years ago. He remembered the long days, the cold mornings, and the people who lived deep within the hills. But what he remembered most was the day he had gotten lost during a sudden fog. A girl from a rescue family had found him. Young, brave, and full of life. She had guided the team to his location and stayed near him until he was safe. Her name had been Asha. He stared at the girl on the stage now. Her hair was longer, her face older, her overall appearance more worn. But that tattoo, no one else in the world would have exactly that symbol. It wasn't a design from a shop. It was drawn by her guardian, the old mountain healer, given only to members of their rescue circle. His breath tightened. Could it really be her? The host was speaking again, but Elias no longer registered the words. His mind raced through memories, Asha laughing as she climbed rocks. Asha offering him water when he had been weak. Asha telling him not to worry when he was stranded. But the girl on the stage didn't look like that Asha. She looked distant, almost unsure of herself. Something about her expression made Elias feel as though she had been through many confusing paths since the last time he had seen her. He moved one step forward, without realizing it. "Sir, would you like a seat?" Someone nearby asked with a polite tone. Elias blinked and stepped back, muttering a quiet, "No, thank you." He didn't want attention. The host continued, describing her as someone found wandering without clear information about her background. They claimed she needed guidance, structure, and a safe home environment. The crowd listened with interest. Elias's heart pounded harder. He knew her background. He knew her people. He knew she had not simply wandered. Something had separated her from her mountain home. Something had taken her far away from everything she knew. He needed to stay calm. He needed to think. But all he could think about was the tattoo on her wrist. A soft murmur moved through the audience as the host prepared to continue with the next introduction. Elias realized that if this event ended, the girl might be taken somewhere else. Somewhere he might not be able to follow. A quiet panic stirred inside him. He looked again. The girl shifted slightly, and the tattoo came into full view under the light. A memory flashed in his mind, Asha holding his hand, telling him, "You'll be okay. I'll stay here until help comes." 1. The memory squeezed his chest. Before he could stop himself, he stepped forward. "Stop!" The word escaped louder than he intended. The room went silent. Every head turned toward him. Elias swallowed hard, but didn't back away. He raised his hand slightly, trying to steady his voice. I'll take responsibility for her. I'll sponsor her." There was a sudden ripple of whispers among the audience. The host blinked, surprised by the interruption, but quickly regained his pleasant smile. "Oh? You are interested, sir?" The host asked gently, his tone smooth. "Yes," Elias said. His voice carried a firmness he didn't plan. He tried to breathe slowly. "I'd like to offer support for her." The girl looked up for the first time. Her eyes met his. There was no spark of recognition, only confusion. But that didn't matter. Elias recognized her, and he knew he couldn't walk away. The host nodded. "Very well. Please come forward after the presentation, to complete the forms." Elias nodded. He stepped back into the crowd, aware that people were still watching him. His heart was loud in his ears. He hadn't planned any of this. He had only come to observe. He was supposed to be invisible. But the moment he saw that tattoo, all plans had changed. He told himself again that he wasn't here to cause trouble. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He couldn't let her vanish again. Not after everything she once did for him. He looked at the girl once more. She had lowered her head again, but he noticed her fingers lightly touching her tattoo, almost as if she sensed something familiar. Elias felt a strange mix of fear, hope, and responsibility swirl inside him. He whispered under his breath, "Asha, it has to be you." And somewhere deep in his heart, he knew that this unexpected reunion was only the beginning. Elias sat in the waiting lounge of the warehouse, his hands clasped tightly together. The event had ended, and most people had already left. Soft music still played through the speakers, but the room felt much quieter now. Only a few assistants walked around, putting away chairs and decorations. He kept glancing toward the doorway, where the girl had been taken for processing. They said they needed to check her identification, her basic details, and her comfort level before completing any sponsorship paperwork. It was standard procedure, they explained. He nodded politely when they told him, but inside, impatience slowly built. He wasn't worried about the paperwork. He wasn't worried about the formalities. He was worried about her, the girl with the mountain tattoo, the girl he believed to be Asha. His mind kept drifting back, slipping into memories he thought he had left behind. Years ago, he had volunteered in a remote mountain region as part of a medical support team. It had been one of the most beautiful places he had ever seen: sharp cliffs, endless forests, and rivers that ran like shining silver threads. But it was also a place where communication was weak and travel was difficult. One morning, Elias had gone out alone to check on a small village where a few families lived. The path was narrow, and clouds had been gathering since sunrise. He remembered thinking he would return before the weather changed. But weather in the mountains had its own plans. A thick fog settled so fast that Elias could barely see his own hands. He stopped walking, unsure of where he was. The world around him turned quiet and heavy, as if wrapped in cotton. He remembered calling out, trying to listen for anything familiar. Nothing answered. Hours felt like minutes, and minutes felt like hours. By the time he realized he had wandered off the path, he was already deep in unfamiliar terrain. His radio barely worked. His phone had no signal. He had tried to stay calm, tried to follow the training he had been given. But fear still crept into his mind, just like the fog that surrounded him. That was when he heard something, the faint sound of footsteps. A small figure appeared through the mist. Shorter than him, moving gently. He thought for a moment it might be a wandering goat or animal. But then the figure came closer. The fog parting just enough for him to see. A young girl stood there, probably 12 or 13 at the time. She wore a simple mountain jacket, her hair tied back, and she held a wooden walking stick in her hand. Her eyes were bright, even in the dull gray surroundings. "You're lost," she said calmly, as if she had been expecting him. He had blinked, unsure how to respond. She smiled a little. "Come. I know the way." He followed her slowly, step by step, trusting her confidence. She seemed to know every rock, every turn, every hidden curve of the land. Even though the fog was thick, she moved with certainty. After a while, Elias asked her, "What's your name?" "Asha," she replied, without turning around. He had remembered that name ever since, simple, soft, but full of strength. She had brought him to a safe clearing where a rescue team later found him. She had stayed beside him until help arrived, offering him warm tea from a small metal container she carried. Even at such a young age, she had a calmness that he had admired. Before leaving, she had touched her wrist and showed him a fresh, tattoo-like mark, 3 thin lines beneath a mountain symbol. "It's my sign," she told him proudly. "Our rescue circle gives it to us when we join." He had smiled then, appreciating the innocence and pride in her voice. He had never imagined that years later, that same symbol would pull him back into her life. The sudden sound of footsteps brought him out of his memories. An assistant approached him. "Sir, you can meet her now." "She's in room 3, the assistant said politely. Elias stood up immediately, thanking him quietly before walking toward the hallway. His heart beat faster with each step. He didn't know what he was going to say. He didn't know if she would remember him. But he had to try. He reached room 3, took a slow breath, and gently pushed the door open. The girl sat on a chair near the window. Her hands rested in her lap, and she seemed lost in her thoughts. When she turned her head slightly, her eyes met his. Elias stepped inside and closed the door softly behind him. "Hello," he said in a warm voice. She nodded but said nothing. There was a gentle breeze coming from the slightly opened window, making the curtains sway like quiet whispers. The girl watched them for a moment, before looking back at him. Elias sat across from her, keeping a respectful distance. "My name is Elias," he said softly. "I'm the one who requested to sponsor you." 2. She looked down at her wrist for a second, touching the tattoo gently, as if it brought her comfort. Elias's eyes followed the movement. The symbol was exactly the same as he remembered. He took a slow breath. "I know you might not recognize me," he said. But years ago, I was in the mountains where your people lived. I met a girl there. A brave girl named Asha. Her fingers froze. Her shoulders tightened, just slightly. Elias noticed. She helped me when I was lost, he continued. She guided rescuers to me. She stayed with me until they came. The girl's eyes lifted, studying him more carefully now. Her expression held curiosity mixed with something deeper. Perhaps an effort to recall a memory buried beneath years of confusion. Elias didn't want to overwhelm her, so he spoke slowly. You have the same tattoo, he said softly. The same symbol. The same lines. That's why I reacted so strongly earlier. She raised her wrist and looked at the tattoo as though seeing it for the first time. Then she lowered her hand and whispered, Asha. Elias leaned forward slightly. Yes, that was your name, wasn't it? She closed her eyes as if trying to reach into the quiet corners of her own mind. When she opened them, there was a hint of sadness in them. I don't remember everything, she murmured, voice barely above a whisper. I remember mountains. I remember cold mornings. And a whistle. She hesitated. A sharp whistle. It meant something. Elias felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. He had used a field medic whistle during the rescue operations back then. Short, sharp notes to signal volunteers. He reached into his bag slowly and took out a small metal whistle he still carried. He held it up. This? He asked gently. Her eyes widened. A soft breath escaped her lips. It was not fear, more like recognition mixed with relief. She looked at the whistle, then at him. I remember that, she said faintly. Someone used it. Someone who needed help. Elias smiled carefully. That someone was me. The girl blinked. Her eyes softened. He wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but he kept his hands to himself. He didn't want to push her. She was trying to piece together her memories, and he knew that could take time. You don't need to remember everything now, he said kindly. She looked at him for a long moment. The silence was gentle, not heavy. She seemed to be studying his face, searching for something familiar. Finally, she asked in a quiet voice, Why? Elias exhaled softly. Because you helped me once, he said, and because no matter how much time has passed, I never forgot. Her eyes glistened with something fragile hope, maybe, or comfort, or simply the feeling of not being alone. A light knock came at the door. An assistant peeked in. Elias nodded. Thank you. He stood. The girl stood slowly. She seemed uncertain at first, but when she reached the doorway, she paused and glanced back at him. Elias, she said softly. Yes? My name. I think it is Asha. He smiled gently. I'm glad you remember. She gave a small nod. Not a full smile, but the closest she had come yet. A quiet beginning. As they walked down the hallway together, Elias felt something shift inside him. It was as if the past had opened a door he never expected to walk through again. And beside him, Asha walked with slow, careful steps that hinted at a story still waiting to be uncovered. Asha walked beside Elias as they left the warehouse building, the cool evening air greeting them like a gentle reminder that the real world still existed outside the strange event they had just attended. Streetlights glowed softly, casting long shadows on the pavement. Asha hugged her light jacket around her, not because she was cold, but because everything around her felt unfamiliar. Elias glanced at her every few seconds, making sure she was comfortable, but he tried not to stare too much. He didn't want her to feel pressured. She had already been through enough confusion for one day. Their car was parked at the end of the block. Elias opened the passenger side door for her. Asha looked at the seat for a moment before getting inside slowly, as if she was unsure whether it was truly meant for her. Elias closed the door gently and walked around to his side. Once the engine started, soft music played through the speakers, creating a peaceful atmosphere. Asha watched the buildings slide past the window. She didn't say anything at first, and Elias didn't rush her. He knew silence could sometimes be comforting, like a soft blanket for a tired mind. After a few minutes, she finally whispered, "Where are we going?" "To a safe place," Elias replied warmly. "My team works with people in difficult situations. We have a small office and living space nearby. You can rest there tonight. No pressure, no questions you don't want to answer." She nodded slowly, trusting his calm voice. The drive took about 20 minutes. When they arrived, the small building looked simple but welcoming, soft lights glowing from inside, plants lining the entrance, and a gentle wind chime near the door. As they walked in, a few of Elias's team members greeted them with warm smiles. "Long day?" one of them asked, noticing how tired Aisha looked. Elias nodded. "Very long. This is Asha." They all gave her gentle smiles before returning to their tasks. Asha looked relieved that no one crowded her with questions. Elias guided her to a quiet room with a comfortable couch, blankets, and a small table. "You can rest here. If you need anything, just call my name or ring the bell." He pointed at a small silver bell on the table. Asha looked around the room, her eyes lingering on the window, the soft lamp, the neatly folded blankets. Everything felt peaceful. Something she hadn't felt for a long time. "Thank you," she said softly. Elias nodded. "I'll be right outside." He left the door slightly open to give her breathing room, while still ensuring she didn't feel alone. Asha sat on the couch, running her fingers gently along the fabric. She wanted to sleep, but her mind was filled with memories that came and went, like small waves never clear enough to understand, but strong enough to make her heart feel heavy. She closed her eyes. She saw mountains, trees, a small house, smoke from a cooking fire, someone laughing, someone calling her name, someone playing a flute during the evening, a woman stirring soup, a man carving wood. Then the memory faded again. She opened her eyes and sighed. Outside the room, Elias sat at a desk, typing reports for his team, but his mind kept drifting back to Asha. He wondered what she remembered, what she didn't, and how much time it would take for her to feel whole again. After some time, he heard a soft knock on the doorframe. He turned around and saw Asha standing there, holding the edge of her sleeve with nervous fingers. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "Can I sit with you?" "Of course." She sat across from him, her eyes scanning the papers on the desk. Then, she looked at the whistle hanging from a small hook on his backpack. "I remember that sound," she whispered. Elias reached over and gently picked up the whistle. He didn't blow it, but he let her hold it. She studied it closely. "My family, I think. We used sounds too. Signals. When someone needed help, or when someone was lost." Elias nodded. "Yes. Your rescue circle used a similar system. I remember the older rescuers telling stories about it. They said it was how they kept everyone safe." Aisha's eyes softened at the word, safe. She held the whistle gently, as if it were a piece of her past, returning to her. After a moment she asked, "Elias, how did I leave the mountains?" He paused. He didn't want to give her answers that weren't hers, to remember naturally. So, he spoke carefully. "I don't know the full story," he said truthfully. "All I know is that you were with your people when I last saw you. A lot can happen over many years. Sometimes, life takes turns we don't expect." Asha looked down, her face thoughtful. "But I believe," Elias continued softly, "that your memories will return when you're ready. You're not alone anymore. We'll help you find your family." Asha looked up, hope shining faintly in her eyes. Elias offered her a warm smile before standing. "Do you want some tea? We have mint, chamomile, and a few others." She nodded. "Mint, please." As he made tea in the small kitchen, Asha walked around the room slowly. She noticed framed pictures of people smiling during community events, volunteers setting up tents, children playing with art supplies. She paused at a picture of mountains on the wall, eerily similar to the ones in her memories. Her heart fluttered. When Elias returned with the tea, she was still staring at the picture. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, handing her the cup. She nodded. "It feels familiar." They sat down again, sipping their tea. The warm steam made the room feel cozier. Asha relaxed a little, breathing slowly. After a long, peaceful silence, she said softly, "I think I remember someone else." Elias leaned forward. "Who?" "A boy," she said, her voice distant. "Not very old, maybe 7 or 8. He used to follow me around. He would try to copy me when I climbed rocks." Elias smiled. "Maybe he was your friend." Asha shook her head softly. "No. He called me Dee. That means older sister." Elias's eyes brightened. "You have a brother?" Asha swallowed hard. "Maybe. I think so. But I don't know his name. I only remember his laughter." Elias felt a gentle ache in his chest. He knew how difficult it must be for her having pieces of memories, but not the whole picture. He reached out and placed the whistle gently on the table between them. "Little by little," he said softly, "everything will come back." Asha nodded. She took another sip of tea. The warmth seemed to calm the confusion inside her. After a while, she asked, "Elias, were you scared when you were lost in the mountains?" He chuckled softly. "I felt safe." She blinked, surprised. "I made you feel safe?" "You did," he said. "You were brave, calm. You knew exactly what to do." Asha looked at her hands quietly, a small spark of pride lighting her expression. "I want to remember that version of me." "You will," Elias said gently. "And maybe you'll become even stronger now." Her eyes softened. For the first time since he met her again, she smiled a small, fragile, but real smile. A light knock sounded at the door. One of Elias's team members peeked in. "We've prepared a quiet room for Asha. She can sleep comfortably tonight." Asha looked at Elias. He nodded kindly. "You should rest. Tomorrow will be a new day." She rose from her chair slowly. As she walked toward the door, she paused and looked back at him. "Elias?" "Yes? If I forget again tomorrow, will you remind me?" He smiled warmly. "Every time." Asha nodded, comforted, and followed the team member to her room. When Elias was alone, he leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. He felt relief, hope, and a quiet sense of purpose. Asha, remembering even small pieces of her past, was a good sign. But he also knew something else. Now her journey wasn't simple. There was more to her past than either of them fully understood yet. As he turned off the lights and prepared to rest, he whispered into the stillness. "We'll find your story again, Asha. Together." Outside, the night was calm. Inside, Asha lay in her warm bed, staring at the ceiling with soft eyes. Before sleep finally pulled her in, she whispered to herself, "I remember. The mountains." Asha woke up the next morning to the soft glow of sunlight entering through the window. For a moment, she simply lay still, watching the golden light dance across the wall. It felt warm, peaceful, and strangely familiar, as if memories were hidden in the sunlight itself. She blinked slowly, trying to gather her thoughts. The room felt safe. The blanket was warm. The soft pillow beneath her, scented faintly of lavender. She touched her wrist gently, feeling the small tattoo beneath her fingers. A quiet strength filled her chest. Then she remembered Elias. She remembered his calm voice, his kindness, and the way he had spoken about the mountains. She remembered the whistle and the quiet promise he made. Every time, a small smile touched her lips. A few minutes later, she walked into the main room. Elias was there, pouring tea into 2 cups. When he saw her, his face brightened. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied softly. "Did you sleep well?" She nodded. "Yes. I dreamed about my home." Elias's eyebrows lifted slightly. "That's a good sign." Asha sat down and accepted the tea he offered. As she held the warm cup between her hands, she felt steadier, more connected to herself. "Do you want to talk about the dream?" Elias asked. Asha closed her eyes for a moment. "I saw a river, clear water, and a small wooden bridge. I think I crossed it every day." "So?" Elias smiled gently. "There are many places like that in your mountain region. Maybe we can find the exact one when we search." Her eyes widened. "We're searching?" "Yes," he said kindly. "My team is already gathering information, and today, someone special is coming to help us." Asha tilted her head. "Who?" "A person who knows a lot about your mountain community. A friend who worked there even before I did." Asha felt a flutter of excitement and nervousness at the same time. She didn't know what to expect, but her heart seemed ready for the answers she would hear. Later that morning, a woman arrived, a gentle-looking lady with warm eyes and a calm smile. She introduced herself as Mira. "I heard about you," Mira said softly, looking at Asha as if she were a long-lost friend. "People from your mountain area often spoke about a young girl with a brave heart." Asha blinked, surprised. "Me?" Mira nodded. "Yes, they called you the Little Mountain Guide. You helped everyone. Old people, children, travelers." Asha felt something warm spread through her chest. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the deep emotion of being recognized. Mira continued. "When I heard your description, I thought, it might be her. And when Elias mentioned the tattoo, I knew it must be you." Asha touched her wrist again. "So you know my family?" Mira nodded. "I met them long ago. They were kind, hardworking people. And yes, they had a little boy too." Asha gasped softly. "My brother." "Yes," Mira said gently. "He adored you. He followed you everywhere." The memory of the little boy's laughter returned to Asha with a sharp clarity that made her eyes glisten. "Do you know where they are now?" she asked, voice trembling with hope. Mira exchanged a calm glance with Elias before speaking. "They moved after a natural shift in the land. Many families relocated for safety. But your people, they never stopped looking for you." A tear rolled down Asha's cheek, soft, quiet, full of longing. Not sadness, not fear, just pure emotion. Elias handed her a tissue. "Take your time." Asha wiped her eyes slowly. "They looked for me?" she whispered. "Yes," Mira said. "Your brother always believed you would return. He would tell visitors, 'My Didi will come home.'" Asha closed her eyes, letting those words sink into her heart. She felt something inside her, unlock something that had been shut away for years. "Can I meet them?" Asha asked. "Of course," Mira said warmly. "We will take you to them." Elias spent the next few days helping Asha prepare emotionally, mentally, and physically. She still had moments when her memory seemed foggy or unclear, but each day brought new clarity. Sometimes it was a smell, sometimes a sound, sometimes a picture, and sometimes a simple word that brought a memory flooding back. One evening, as the sun set outside the window, she walked up to Elias. "I remember something else," she said. "What is it?" he asked. "You," she replied softly. "I remember your voice from the mountains. You asked for help." Elias felt his heart warm. "Yes, I did. And you came." She nodded slowly. "I didn't understand at first. But now, it feels clear." He smiled. "Memories return when they are ready." Finally, The day came when they were ready to travel to the mountain region. Asha felt nervous, but also full of hope. She carried the whistle in her pocket, a symbol of her life, before everything changed. Elias walked beside her, steady and reassuring. The long drive took them through green hills, quiet fields, and winding roads. As they got closer to the mountains, Aisha's eyes lit up with recognition. "That tree," she whispered. "I climbed one like that." "That sound," she said later, listening to distant bells. "My village used bells too." "That smell," she murmured as wind carried the scent of pine. "We used to dry herbs outside." Every small detail connected her more deeply to her past. Finally, they reached a small mountain settlement. Wooden houses stood along a quiet path. Children played near a stone fountain. Older people sat outside chatting and smiling in the sun. Asha's steps grew slower, her eyes shining with emotion. Then, she heard it. A familiar laugh. Bright, happy, young. She turned sharply toward the sound. A young boy, now older than the memory she held, stood near a hut, arranging firewood. He looked different, taller, but his eyes were exactly the same. "Didi?" he whispered, frozen in place. Tears filled Asha's eyes instantly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The boy dropped the firewood and ran toward her, stopping just a few steps away. Afraid it wasn't real. His eyes brimmed with tears. "Asha, Didi?" he whispered again. Asha nodded slowly. "Yes, it's me." The boy rushed forward and hugged her tightly, his shoulders shaking with relief and joy. Asha closed her eyes and hugged him back, feeling a warmth so deep it reached her soul. Elias watched from a short distance, his heart full. Mira stood beside him, smiling. Soon, the villagers gathered, whispering in surprise, then joy. People approached Asha, some calling her name, some simply smiling with tears in their eyes. An older woman stepped forward, touching Asha's face gently. "You came home," she whispered. Asha nodded softly. "I finally remembered." Her brother clung to her side, refusing to let go. Elias felt a quiet pride in his chest. He stepped back to give Asha space, but she looked at him and signaled for him to come closer. When he did, she said, "You brought me home." Elias shook his head. "No, you found your own way back. I just walked with you." She smiled brighter than ever before. "And you kept your promise," she said softly. "Every time," he replied with a gentle smile. Asha's brother looked up at Elias with wide, grateful eyes. "Thank you, sir." "Just call me Elias," he said warmly. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky with shades of gold and rose, Asha stood with her family, her heart full, her memories settling into place like pieces of a puzzle finally completed. Life had brought her far away, but kindness had brought her back. And in that peaceful mountain air, surrounded by the people she loved, Asha felt whole again.